The Long Island Serial Killer, Gilgo Beach, 2010, 2011. The wind howled across the desolate stretch of Ocean Parkway, a lonely ribbon of asphalt cutting through the scrubby dunes of Long Island's South Shore. It was December 2010, and the briny air carried a chill that seeped into the bone. Gilgo Beach, a remote spit of sand and marsh near Oak Beach, New York, was no place for the living on a winter's day like this. But for Suffolk County Police Officer John Malia and his K9 partner, Blue, it was just another patrol until Blue's nose caught something foul, something that didn't belong among the saltgrass and driftwood. Malia's heart sank as he followed the dog's insistent pull toward a tangle of burlap sacks, half buried in the sand. What he uncovered would shatter the quiet of this coastal hamlet and unleash a nightmare that still haunts Long Island to this day. The first sack was heavy, its coarse fibers stained with salt and decay. Malia's gloved hands trembled as he peeled it open, revealing the skeletal remains of a woman, her body bound with duct tape, her life snuffed out in some unspeakable act. Her name, he would later learn, was Melissa Barthelemy, a 24-year-old sex worker from the Bronx who vanished in July 2009. She was petite, barely 5 feet tall, with dreams that never had a chance to bloom. Malia radioed for backup, his voice tight with dread, but Blue was already tugging him further along the beach. Another sack, another body. Megan Waterman, 22, a mother from Maine, gone missing in June 2010. Then another. Amber Lynn Costello, 27, last seen in September 2010. Her life reduced to bones wrapped in burlap. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, 4 bodies had been found, all within a quarter-mile stretch, all bound, all discarded like refuse. The press would later dub them the Gilgo 4, but in that moment, they were simply a grotesque puzzle, a tableau of death that whispered of a predator who walked among the living. The discovery sent shockwaves through Suffolk County. Gilgo Beach, a place where locals fished and teens snuck beers under the stars, was now a graveyard. Residents locked their doors, their eyes darting to the shadows. Who could do this? And why here, in this windswept nowhere? The police scrambled, combing the dunes for clues, but the killer had been careful. The bodies were skeletonized, stripped of flesh by time and the elements, leaving little forensic evidence. The burlap sacks, coarse and common, offered no fingerprints, no DNA. The only certainty was the method. Each woman had been bound, wrapped, and dumped with chilling precision, as if following a script. Investigators noted the similarities: petite women, all in their 20s, all working as escorts, advertising their services on Craigslist. They weren't random targets, they were hunted. As winter turned to spring, the search intensified. March and April 2011 brought more horrors. 6 additional sets of remains were uncovered along Ocean Parkway, scattered across Suffolk and Nassau counties. Some were partial, like the torso of Jessica Taylor, a 20-year-old sex worker missing since July 2003. Her head and hands found miles from where her mutilated body had been discovered years earlier in Manorville. Others were unidentified, like the remains of a toddler, a girl no older than 2, and her mother, nicknamed Peaches for a tattoo on her body. There was Asian Doe, a biological male of Chinese descent, dressed in women's clothing, his skull shattered by blunt force. And Valerie Mack, 24, whose decapitated remains were first found in Manorville in 2000, only to be linked to Gilgo Beach a decade later when more of her bones surfaced. The body count rose to 10, maybe 11, and the timeline stretched back to at least 1,993, when Sandra Castilla's body was found in a wooded area of Southampton, Long Island. Each discovery deepened the mystery, each bone a silent scream for justice. The public's fear grew with every headline. Long Island, with its quiet suburbs and beachfront charm, was no stranger to crime, but this was different. This was a predator who operated in plain sight, who knew the South Shore's backroads and desolate beaches like the back of his hand. A 2011 New York Times article speculated he was a white male, mid-20s to mid-40s, familiar with the area, with access to burlap sacks, perhaps a hunter, a landscaper, or someone who blended into the community. Some whispered he might be a cop, given how cleanly he evaded detection. Others wondered if there was more than one killer, the crimes too spread out, too varied. The police chased leads, but the trail was cold. The victims' lives marked by poverty, addiction, and the dangers of sex work meant their disappearances had barely registered until their bodies surfaced. Society had failed them in life, and now it seemed to fail them in death. The investigation began with Shannon Gilbert, a 24-year-old sex worker whose disappearance in May 2010 sparked the initial search. Her frantic 911 call, made as she fled a client's home in Oak Beach, painted a picture of terror. "Somebody's after me," she screamed before the line went dead. Her body wasn't found until December 2011, in a marsh 9 miles from the Gilgo 4. Her death controversially ruled an accidental drowning, despite her family's insistence she was murdered. Shannon's case opened the floodgates, exposing the horrors along Ocean Parkway. But it also raised questions. Was she one of the killer's victims, or had her death simply led police to his dumping ground? Treasure hunters and conspiracy theorists latched onto the case, spinning tales of police corruption, satanic cults, and government cover-ups. The truth, though, was grim enough without embellishment. Someone had turned Gilgo Beach into a mass grave, and for over a decade, they walked free. The years dragged on, and the case grew colder. Families of the victims' mothers, siblings, children clung to fading hope, their grief, a quiet counterpoint to the media frenzy. Melissa Barthelomy's mother received taunting calls from her daughter's phone after her disappearance, a male voice mocking her pain. Maureen Brainerd Barnes, a mother of 2, had returned to sex work to avoid eviction, only to vanish in 2007. Amber Costello's twin sister spoke of her laugh, her kindness, refusing to let her be reduced to a headline. These women were more than victims. They were daughters, sisters, friends, and their stories fueled a dogged task force formed in 2022 to revisit the evidence. Then, in July 2023, a breakthrough. Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architect from Massapequa Park, was arrested outside his Manhattan office. A married father of 2, Heuermann was no drifter or loner. He was a fixture in his community, a man who navigated New York's building codes with the same precision he allegedly applied to his crimes. The evidence was damning. DNA from a pizza box he discarded matched a hair on Megan Waterman's body. Cell phone records placed him in Midtown Manhattan, where the victims worked, and a witness recalled a Chevy Avalanche registered to Heuermann near Amber Costello's last known location. His home yielded 300 guns, 27 computers, 46 cell phones, and a chilling planning document from 2000, titled HK 2000-2-04, detailing supplies like rope, tarps, and cutting tools, and steps to remove head and hands to thwart identification. The document listed DS, dump site, locations, including Mill Road in Manorville, where Valerie Mack's remains were found. Newspaper clippings about the murders, kept like trophies, were found in his office. Hairs linked to his wife, Asa Ellerup, and daughter were found on victims, though neither was implicated. The hairs likely transferred from Heuermann's clothing or home. Heuermann was charged with 7 murders. Melissa Bartholomew, 2009. Megan Waterman, 2010. Amber Lynn Costello, 2010. Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 2007. Jessica Taylor, 2003. Sandra Costilla, 1993, and Valerie Mack, 2000. Each victim was dismembered, bound, and dumped, their tattoos mutilated to erase their identities. Prosecutors alleged Heuermann tortured his victims, keeping them alive for days to maximize their suffering, a sadistic ritual outlined in his notes. His internet searches: 11 currently active serial killers, 8 terrifying active serial killers we can't find, betrayed an obsession with his own infamy. Yet he pleaded not guilty, his attorney, Michael Brown, calling the evidence circumstantial, the planning document insignificant. The defense challenged the DNA, a novel whole genome sequencing method untested in New York courts, and sought to split the cases into multiple trials, arguing the 20-year span suggested multiple killers. The arrest was a seismic shift, but it didn't close the case. 4 sets of remains: Karen Vergata, Asian Doe, Peaches, and her toddler remained unlinked to Heuermann. Vergata, identified in 2023, vanished in 1996. her remains scattered across Fire Island and Tabay Beach. Asian Doe, killed before 2006, bore signs of a violent assault. His identity still a mystery, despite new sketches released in 2024. The mother and child, identified in 2025 as Tanya Jackson and her daughter Tatiana Dykes, were found miles apart, their deaths possibly unrelated to Heuermann's spree. Suffolk County DA Ray Tierney vowed to keep digging, saying, "We're not limiting this to Gilgo Beach." An army of investigators combed cold cases, chasing the possibility of more victims, more killers. The South Shore, with its hidden marshes and forgotten roads, held secrets yet to be unearthed. As Heuermann awaited trial in Riverhead Correctional Facility, the community grappled with its new reality. Massapequa Park, where Heuermann raised his family, was stunned. Neighbors called him quiet, unassuming, a man who mowed his lawn and waved politely. Billy Baldwin, a high school classmate, tweeted, "Mind-boggling. Massapequa is in shock." The architect's double life by day, a code consultant by night, a predator cast, a shadow over Long Island's idyllic facade. Families of the victims, represented by attorney Gloria Allred, stood resolute, presenting flowers to Valerie Mack's parents after a December 2024 hearing, a gesture of shared loss. "None of the victims deserved to die," Allred said, her voice a defiant cry against the stigma that had silenced their stories. The Gilgo Beach murders were no longer a cold case, but the truth remained elusive. Was Heuermann the sole architect of this horror, or did another killer lurk in the dune? The burlap sacks, the severed limbs, the taunting calls, they painted a picture of meticulous evil, but gaps persisted. Why the long gap between Costilla's 1,993 murder and the 2000s killings? Could John Bittrolf, a Manorville carpenter convicted of two 1990s murders, be tied to the torsos found near Heuermann's dump sites? And what of Shannon Gilbert, whose death still sparked debate? The marshes of Oak Beach held their silence, as did the man now behind bars. For every answer, a new question arose, each one a thread in a tapestry of terror that stretched across decades. The wind still howls along Ocean Parkway, carrying the whispers of the lost. Gilgo Beach is no longer just a place, it's a warning, a reminder that monsters wear human faces, that darkness festers in the quiet places. As the trial looms, the world watches, hungry for closure, for justice. But the dunes keep their secrets, and the shadows grow long. What else lies buried in the sand? Who else walks free, their hands stained with blood? The story isn't over, it's only just begun. The summer of 2023 was suffocating on Long Island, the air thick with salt and secrets. In Massapequa Park, a sleepy suburb where picket fences guarded manicured lawns, the unthinkable had happened. Rex Heuermann, the bespectacled architect who coached his daughter's softball team and haggled over zoning codes, was unmasked as a monster. His arrest on the 13th of July, 2023, sent shockwaves through Suffolk County, electrifying a case that had languished in the shadows for over a decade. The Gilgo Beach murder-stained bodies, maybe more, strewn along Ocean Parkway's desolate dunes were no longer a cold case. The predator had a face, a name, and a chilling blueprint for murder. But as investigators peeled back the layers of Heuermann's double life, the story grew darker, wilder, and infinitely more seductive. This wasn't just a manhunt, it was a plunge into the abyss, where every clue sparked a thrill, every twist tightened the noose, and the truth danced just out of reach. The Suffolk County Task Force, reborn in February 2022 under DA Ray Tierney, had been relentless. For years, the case mocked them. No fingerprints, no witnesses, just bones and burlap sacks whispering of a killer's arrogance. But technology had shifted the game. Whole genome sequencing, a forensic leap, teased DNA from a single hair on Megan Waterman's body, linking it to a pizza crust Heuermann tossed in a Manhattan trash can. Cell phone pings placed him in Midtown's neon jungle, where the victims Melissa Barthélemy, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Amber Lynn Costello, and others plied their trade on Craigslist. A witness's memory of a Chevy Avalanche, hulking and unmistakable, near Costello's last known location in 2010 sealed the deal. The task force moved in, their pulses racing, As Heuermann stepped out of his Fifth Avenue office, oblivious to the net closing around him, handcuffs clicked, cameras flashed, and Long Island held its breath. The hunter had become the hunted. The media frenzy was immediate, ravenous. News trucks clogged Massapequa Park's quiet streets, their satellite dishes looming like vultures. Reporters camped outside Heuermann's ramshackle red house, a sagging relic amid the neighborhood's polished facades. Neighbors gawked, their whispers laced with disbelief. "He was just normal," said one, clutching her coffee mug. "He'd wave, mow his lawn, talk about traffic." But normalcy was a mask, and Heuermann wore it well. By day, he was a buttoned-up consultant, navigating New York's bureaucratic maze with a nerdy charm. By night, he allegedly prowled, his desires twisted into something unspeakable. The contrast was intoxicating, a puzzle that begged to be solved. How could a man who kissed his wife goodnight and tucked his kids into bed be the same one who bound, tortured, and dismembered women with surgical precision? The search of Heuermann's home was a descent into madness. Investigators, clad in hazmat suits, tore through the cluttered house, unearthing a hoard that rivaled a horror movie set. 300 guns pistols, rifles, shotguns lined the walls, a private arsenal that screamed paranoia, 27 computers, 46 cell phones, and stacks of hard drives hinted at a digital labyrinth. Then came the jackpot, a file labeled HK2000-2-04, a typed manifesto of murder from 2000. Its pages detailing supplies like rope, tarps, and acid, and steps to remove head and hands to foil identification. It listed DS, dump site, locations, including Mill Road in Manorville, where Valerie Mack's torso was found in 2000. Newspaper clippings about the Gilgo murders, yellowed and meticulously organized, were stashed in his office, trophies of his own infamy. Hairs from his wife, Asa Ellerup, and daughter were found on victims' bodies, though police cleared them, suggesting transfer from Heuermann's clothing. Each find was a jolt, a piece of a grotesque mosaic that painted him as a predator who planned every move, savoring the chaos he left behind. The public was hooked, their curiosity a fever. Social media buzzed with theories, from the plausible to the unhinged. Was Heuermann a lone wolf, or part of a network? Did his architectural expertise knowing Long Island's backroads, its hidden marshes, make him the perfect phantom? X-Post exploded, one user joking, "Gilgo Beach? More like Grim Reaper's Airbnb." Another speculated, "Bet he used his zoning knowledge to pick dump sites." Creepy AF. True crime podcasts churned out episodes, their hosts dissecting Heuermann's psyche with a mix of horror and fascination. The case had everything: a suburban everyman turned villain, a coastal graveyard, and a cat-and-mouse game spanning decades. It was a story that seduced, its darkness pulling you in, daring you to look closer. But the high of the arrest gave way to a new tension. Heuermann's attorney, Michael Brown, was no pushover. In court, he leaned into the drama, his voice dripping with defiance. "This is a circumstantial case," he declared, dismissing the planning document as a guy typing notes, not a murder manual. He challenged the DNA, calling whole genome sequencing untested voodoo science in New York courts. Brown demanded separate trials for the 7 murders. Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 2007, Melissa Barthélemy, 2009, Megan Waterman, 2010, Amber Lynn Costello, 2010, Jessica Taylor, 2003, Valerie Mack, 2000, and Sandra Costilla, 1993. Arguing their 20-year span suggested multiple killers, the defense painted Heuermann as a patsy, a man whose oddities made him an easy target. "He's quirky, not a killer," Brown said, gesturing to his client, who sat stone-faced, his 6'4" frame hunched in an ill-fitting suit. The courtroom crackled with doubt. Could the task force have nabbed the wrong man? The prosecution, led by Tierney, countered with a narrative that chilled the room. They described Heuermann's alleged method: luring escorts to motels, binding them with duct tape, torturing them for days to maximize suffering, then dismembering them with a butcher's precision. His notes outlined body prep and cleanup, a checklist for erasing evidence. He mutilated tattoos Jessica Taylor's among them to strip victims of identity, a sadistic flourish. Internet searches on burner phones revealed his obsession. 11 currently active serial killers. Why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? He even Googled himself, typing Rex Heuermann Lisk, after news reports named him a person of interest. The evidence was a house of cards, each piece precarious, but damning when stacked together. Tierney's voice rose, his words ablade. This man didn't just kill, he reveled in it. The stakes soared as new details emerged. Heuermann's trips to Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and Florida raised flags. Had he hunted beyond Long Island, leaving bodies in other states? A 2024 search of his Chevy Avalanche uncovered a hidden compartment, perfect for smuggling tools or worse. His wife's hairs on victims suggested he brought his work home, blurring the line between family man and fiend. Yet Asa Ellerup, filing for divorce, insisted she knew nothing, her life upended by the man she slept beside for decades. The human cost was raw, visceral. Victims' families packed the courtroom, their eyes burning with grief and rage. Gloria Allred, their attorney, stood tall, her voice a clarion call. These women were daughters, mothers, sisters. They deserved to live. A hush fell as Maureen Brainerd, Barnes's sister, clutched a photo of her, tears streaking her face. The tension was unbearable, a tightrope walk between justice and despair. Then came the twist that sent pulses racing. 4 sets of remains, Karen Vergata, Asian Doe, Peaches, and her toddler weren't tied to Heuermann. Vergata, identified in 2023, vanished in 1996. Her skull found on Fire Island, her legs off Tobay Beach. Asian Doe, killed before 2006, bore signs of a frenzied attack, his identity elusive despite 2024 sketches. Tanya Jackson and her daughter, Tatiana Dykes, identified in 2025 as Peaches and her child, were found miles apart, their deaths a riddle. Tierney admitted the possibility of another killer, saying, "Gilgo Beach isn't a monolith." The words landed like a thunderclap. Was Heuermann a scapegoat for some murders, while another predator roamed free? Or had he evolved, his methods shifting over decades? The task force doubled down, scouring cold cases from Montauk to Manhattan, chasing whispers of bodies yet to be found. The climax came in a December 2024 hearing, where the prosecution unveiled a bombshell. A witness, a former escort, claimed Heuermann approached her in 2010, offering extra for rough play. She fled when he produced duct tape, her description matching his Avalanche and Midtown haunt. The courtroom buzzed, jurors leaning forward as Brown scrambled to discredit her, calling her memory conveniently vivid. But the damage was done. The witness's story was a thread that tied Heuermann to the victim's world, her fear a mirror of theirs. The hearing ended with a judge denying Brown's motion to split the trials, ruling the murder's unique signature pointed to one killer. Cheers erupted from the victims' families, a fleeting release of years of pain. Heuermann's head bowed, his mask slipping for a moment, revealing what? Guilt? Defiance? The room held its breath, the drama peaking in a single, electric instant. The resolution, though, was bittersweet. Heuermann's trial was set for 2025, but questions lingered like fog over Gilgo Beach. Could John Bitt Rolfe, the Manorville carpenter convicted of 2 1990s murders, be linked to the torsos found near Heuermann's sites? Was Shannon Gilbert's 2010 death ruled accidental, a misstep in the killer's spree? And what of the unidentified remains, their stories silenced by time? The task force pressed on, their resolve a quiet fire. Tierney vowed, "We'll chase every lead, dig every dune." For the families, it was a step toward closure, but not the end. "My sister's voice will be heard," said Melissa Bartholomew's brother, his fist clenched. The case was alive, its pulse quickening with every revelation, every hint of truth. Long Island buzzed with a strange energy, equal parts dread and fascination. Gilgo Beach, once a footnote, was now a stage where humanity's darkest impulses played out. Heuermann's arrest was a triumph, but it cracked open a Pandora's box of possibilities. The dunes still whispered, their secrets buried deep. Another killer? A wider spree? The story was a siren's call, luring you into its depths with promises of answers that might never come. As the trial loomed, one thing was certain. The hunt for the Long Island serial killer was far from over, and its next chapter would be even more intoxicating, more perilous than the last. The spring of 2025 draped Long Island in a restless haze, the kind that clings to your skin and stirs unease. In Riverhead, New York, the Suffolk County Courthouse stood like a fortress, its gray facade a silent witness to the storm brewing within. The trial of Rex Heuermann, the architect accused of turning Gilgo Beach into a graveyard, was underway, and the air crackled with anticipation. For over a decade, the Long Island serial killer had been a phantom, a specter who bound, dismembered, and discarded women with chilling precision. Now, he sat in a courtroom, his hulking 6'4" frame dwarfing the defense table, his eyes unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. The world watched, hungry for justice, seduced by the twisted allure of a man who allegedly lived two lives, one of suburban normalcy, the other of unspeakable horror. This was no ordinary trial. It was a descent into the heart of darkness, where every testimony, every revelation, pushed the stakes higher, teasing answers that both thrilled and terrified. The courtroom was a theater of raw emotion. Families of the victims, Melissa Barthelemy, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, Amberlynn Costello, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, and Sandra Costello filled the benches, their faces etched with grief and defiance. Gloria Allred, their attorney, was a force of nature, her tailored suits and steely gaze a beacon for the voiceless. Across the aisle, Heuermann's attorney, Michael Brown, exuded a slick confidence, his strategy clear. Sow doubt, fracture the narrative, and paint his client as a scapegoat. Presiding was Judge Timothy Mazzei, a no-nonsense jurist whose sharp rulings kept the proceedings taut. Outside, news vans lined Route 25, their anchors breathlessly recounting the case's grisly details to a global audience. X posts buzzed with speculation, one user quipping, "Heuermann's trial is giving Netflix vibes, but way creepier." The stage was set, and the drama was electric. The prosecution, led by DA Ray Tierney, opened with a masterstroke. They painted Heuermann as a predator whose meticulous planning rivaled his architectural blueprints. "This man didn't just kill," Tierney declared, his voice a low growl. "He orchestrated symphonies of suffering." The jury leaned forward as he unveiled the HK 2002-04 document, a chilling manifesto from 2000 found in Heuermann's home. Its typed pages listed supplies, duct tape, tarps, saw sand steps like remove head and hands, and mutilate marks to erase identities. A map marked DS, dump site, locations, including Mill Road in Manorville, where Valerie Mack's torso was found in 2000, and Ocean Parkway, where the Gilgo 4 were discovered in 2010. Tierney held up a photo of a burlap sack, its coarse fibers stained with time, and said, "This was his signature, his calling card." The room felt colder, the weight of 7 murders spanning 1993 to 2010 pressing down like a vice. The evidence mounted, each piece a pulse of adrenaline. A DNA expert testified about a hair on Megan Waterman's body, matched to Heuermann via whole genome sequencing, a method so precise it could identify a single person in billions. Cell phone records placed him in Midtown Manhattan, where the victims advertised on Craigslist, their lives intersecting with his in seedy motels. A witness, a cab driver from West Babylon, recalled seeing Heuermann's Chevy Avalanche near Amber Costello's last known location in September 2010, its hulking frame unmistakable in the pre-dawn gloom. Then came the digital trail, burner phones linked to Heuermann's searches for Lisk, serial killer techniques, and how to dispose of a body. One chilling query: why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? Drew gasps from the jury. Tierney paused, letting the words linger, his eyes locked on Heuermann, who stared ahead, impassive. The tension was a living thing, coiling tighter with every syllable. But the prosecution's ace was a former escort, Jane Rowe, whose testimony set the courtroom ablaze. A petite woman with haunted eyes, she took the stand, her voice trembling but resolute. In 2010, she said, Heuermann approached her in Midtown, offering $1,500 for something special. His charm was disarming, his smile almost warm until he pulled out a roll of duct tape. "He said he liked it rough," she whispered, her hands shaking. She fled, heart pounding, and later saw his avalanche idling nearby. "I knew I'd escaped something evil," she said, tears spilling. The jury was riveted, their faces a mix of horror and fascination. Allred nodded approvingly, while Brown scribbled furiously, sensing the tide turning. Jane's story wasn't just evidence. It was a window into the killer's seduction, his ability to lure with promises before revealing the beast within. The room buzzed, the drama soaring to a fever pitch. Brown struck back, his cross-examination a calculated assault. He grilled Jane, suggesting her memory was conveniently vivid after years of silence. "You're profiting from this, aren't you?" he pressed, hinting at book deals. Jane's composure cracked, but she held firm. "I'll never forget his face." Brown then attacked the DNA, calling whole genome sequencing experimental junk science untested in New York courts. He mocked the planning document as a writer's fantasy, noting its date, 2000, predated most murders. "My client's quirky, not a killer," he said, gesturing to Heuermann, who managed a faint smile. Brown's boldest move was suggesting multiple killers, pointing to the 20-year gap between Sandra Costella's 1,993 murder and the 2007-2010 spree. "One man didn't do this," he thundered. "The police needed a fall guy, and Rex was it." The jury shifted, doubt creeping in, the narrative teetering on a knife's edge. The tension skyrocketed as the prosecution called a surprise witness, a forensic psychologist, Dr. Emily Voss, who profiled Heuermann as a narcissistic sadist. She described his alleged method keeping victims alive for days, torturing them to maximize control as a ritual rooted in power, not just lust. "He craved their fear," she said, her voice clinical yet chilling. Voss linked Heuermann's newspaper clippings, kept like trophies, to a need for infamy. "He watched the news, read the headlines, and smiled," she said. The jury's eyes darted to Heuermann, searching for a crack in his stoic mask. Then Voss dropped a bombshell. Heuermann's searches included 11 currently active serial killers, suggesting he saw himself as part of a twisted elite. The courtroom erupted, reporters scrambling to tweet the quote. Brown objected, calling it speculative nonsense. But the damage was done. The jury was spellbound, the case a roller coaster of dread and intrigue. The climax came during the defense's case, when Brown called a shock witness, a retired NYPD detective, Frank Delaney, who investigated the 1990s Manorville murders. Delaney claimed similarities between those killings where torsos were dumped, heads and hands removed, and the Gilgo cases, but pointed to John Bittrolf, a Manorville carpenter convicted of two 1990s murders, as a possible culprit. Bittrolf lived near the dump sites hunted in those woods, Delaney said. Why ignore him? The revelation was a grenade, threatening to splinter the prosecution's narrative. Tierney countered fiercely, noting Bittrolf's DNA didn't match Gilgo evidence, while Heuermann's did. But the seed of doubt was planted, and the jury's faces showed it. Was Heuermann the sole architect of this horror, or had another killer's shadow overlapped his? The question hung like smoke, intoxicating and disorienting. The resolution arrived in a grueling 3-hour closing argument. Tierney wove a tapestry of evidence, from the DNA to the avalanche to Jane Roe's terror. Rex Heuermann didn't just kill these women, he said, holding up photos of the victims, their smiles frozen in time. He erased them, believing they'd never matter, but they do. His voice broke, a rare show of vulnerability, as Maureen Brainard, Barnes' sister, sobbed. Brown, in his close, leaned on reasonable doubt, urging the jury to see through the prosecution's house of cards. He painted Heuermann as a flawed man, not a monster, caught in a rush to judgment. Don't let emotion blind you, he pleaded. The jury retired, and the courtroom exhaled, the weight of the decision palpable. Outside, protesters held signs reading, "Justice for the Gilgo 4, while others chanted for Heuermann's release, a surreal clash of passion. Days later, the verdict came. Guilty on all 7 counts. The courtroom exploded in cheers and tears, families embracing as Heuermann's head bowed, his fate sealed. Judge Mazzei sentenced him to life without parole, calling his crimes a stain on humanity. Allred spoke for the families. Today, the voiceless roared. But the triumph was tempered. 4 sets of remains: Karen Vergata, Asian Doe, Tanya Jackson, and her toddler Tatiana Dykes remained unlinked to Heuermann. Tierney vowed to keep digging, saying, "Gilgo Beach holds more secrets." Rumors of Bitrolf's involvement lingered, as did questions about Shannon Gilbert's 2010 death. The trial had answered much, but not all, leaving a seductive mystery that still beckoned. Long Island pulsed with a strange euphoria, the trial's drama etched into its soul. Gilgo Beach, once a quiet shore, was now a legend, its dunes a canvas for humanity's darkest desires. Heuermann's conviction was a victory, but the story wasn't done. Another killer? More victims? The case was a siren, its call irresistible, promising revelations that would thrill, haunt, and captivate. As the courthouse emptied, the wind howled along Ocean Parkway, whispering of truths yet to be unearthed, daring the curious to follow. The autumn of 2025 draped Long Island in a golden shroud, but beneath the amber leaves and crisp air, a restless hunger gnawed. The conviction of Rex Heuermann, the architect who turned Gilgo Beach into a charnel ground, was supposed to bring closure. 7 women: Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Barthélemy, Megan Waterman, Amber Lynn Costello, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, and Sandra Costilla had their justice, their killer sentenced to rot in a cell. Yet the dunes of Ocean Parkway whispered of secrets still buried, of bodies unclaimed, and of a darkness that refused to fade. Suffolk County buzzed with a feverish curiosity. The Gilgo Beach murders, now a legend that seduced and terrified. As the case spiraled into new, uncharted territory, every revelation was a pulse of adrenaline, every question a siren's call. This was no end, it was a beginning, a twisted dance with the unknown that left hearts racing and minds craving more. The Suffolk County Task Force, led by DA Ray Tierney, was relentless. Their victory in court only fuel for a deeper hunt. Heuermann's life sentence in June 2025 was a milestone, but 4 sets of remains, Karen Vergata, Asian Doe, Tanya Jackson, and her toddler Tatiana Dykes remained unlinked to him. These ghosts demanded answers, their stories, a jagged wound in the case's narrative. Vergata, identified in 2023, vanished in 1996, her skull found on Fire Island, her legs washed ashore at Tibet Beach. Asian Doe, a biological male killed before 2006, bore signs of a frenzied assault. His identity, a cipher, despite 2024 sketches. Jackson and her daughter, identified in 2025, were found miles apart, their deaths a haunting enigma. Tierney's words at a press conference were a spark to dry tinder. "We're not done. Gilgo Beach is a puzzle, and we're missing pieces." The public leaned in, their fascination a living thing, as rumors swirled of another killer still at large. The investigation took a electrifying turn in September 2025, when a hiker stumbled across a burlap sack in a wooded area near Montauk, 50 miles east of Gilgo Beach. Inside were partial remains, a woman's, bound with duct tape, her bones weathered but eerily familiar. Forensic teams swarmed, their faces grim as they noted the similarities to Heuermann's victims. Petite frame, signs of dismemberment, and that coarse, telltale burlap. The discovery was a jolt, reigniting the case with a ferocity that gripped Long Island. Was this Heuermann's work, a victim overlooked in his 20-year spree? Or was it proof of another predator, one who mimicked his methods or shared his hunting grounds? X posts exploded, one user writing, "Montauk now? This case is a horror movie that won't end." News outlets ran breathless headlines dubbing the find Gilgo's Echo, and true crime forums buzzed with theories, each more tantalizing than the last. The task force dug deeper, their search, a high-stakes chess game. A tip from a retired groundskeeper pointed to an abandoned lot in Manorville, where Valerie Mack's torso was found in 2000. In October 2025, excavators unearthed a rusted toolbox, its contents a nightmare. A bloodied saw, a coil of rope, and a single earring, later matched to Jessica Taylor's missing jewelry. The find was a thunderclap, linking Heuermann to Manorville's dark history, but it raised a chilling question. How many other sites held his secrets? Tierney's team cross-referenced Heuermann's travel records, uncovering trips to upstate New York, Atlantic City, and Las Vegas in the 1990s and 2000s, times that aligned with unsolved murders of sex workers in those areas. A 2024 search of his Chevy Avalanche had revealed a hidden compartment, perfect for smuggling tool-store body parts across state lines. The possibility of a wider killing spree was intoxicating, a plot twist that sent pulses racing. Could Heuermann be America's most prolific serial killer, his body count dwarfing even Bundy or Gacy? The drama escalated when a new witness emerged, a bartender from Babylon named Carla Esposito, whose story was pure dynamite. In 2009, she claimed, Heuermann, the autumn of 2025 draped Long Island in a golden shroud, but beneath the amber leaves and crisp air, a restless hunger gnawed. The conviction of Rex Heuermann, the architect who turned Gilgo Beach into a charnel ground, was supposed to bring closure. 7 women: Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Amber Lynn Costello, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, and Sandra Costilla had their justice, their killer sentenced to rot in a cell. Yet the dunes of Ocean Parkway whispered of secrets still buried, of bodies unclaimed, and of a darkness that refused to fade. Suffolk County buzzed with a feverish curiosity, the Gilgo Beach murders now a legend that seduced and terrified. As the case spiraled into new, uncharted territory, every revelation was a pulse of adrenaline, every question a siren's call. This was no end, it was a beginning, a twisted dance with the unknown that left hearts racing and minds craving more. The Suffolk County Task Force, led by DA Ray Tierney, was relentless, their victory in court only fuel for a deeper hunt. Heuermann's life sentence in June 2025 was a milestone, but 4 sets of remains, Karen Vergata, Asian Doe, Tanya Jackson, and her toddler Tatiana Dykes remained unlinked to him. These ghosts demanded answers, their stories, a jagged wound in the case's narrative. Vergata, identified in 2023, vanished in 1996, her skull found on Fire Island, her legs washed ashore at Tibet Beach. Asian Doe, a biological male killed before 2006, bore signs of a frenzied assault. His identity is ciphered despite 2024 sketches. Jackson and her daughter, identified in 2025, were found miles apart, their deaths a haunting enigma. Tierney's words at a press conference were a spark to dry tinder. We're not done. Gilgo Beach is a puzzle, and we're missing pieces. The public leaned in, their fascination a living thing, as rumors swirled of another killer still at large. The investigation took an electrifying turn in September 2025, when a hiker stumbled across a burlap sack in a wooded area near Montauk, 50 miles east of Gilgo Beach. Inside were partial remains, a woman's, bound with duct tape, her bones weathered but eerily familiar. Forensic teams swarmed, their faces grim as they noted the similarities to Heuermann's victims. Petite frame, signs of dismemberment, and that coarse, telltale burlap. The discovery was a jolt, reigniting the case with a ferocity that gripped Long Island. Was this Heuermann's work, a victim overlooked in his 20-year spree? Or was it proof of another predator, one who mimicked his methods or shared his hunting grounds? X-Post exploded, one user writing, Montauk now? This case is a horror movie that won't end. News outlets ran breathless headlines, dubbing the find Gilgo's Echo, and true crime forums buzzed with theories, each more tantalizing than the last. The task force dug deeper, their search, a high-stakes chess game. A tip from a retired groundskeeper pointed to an abandoned lot in Manorville, where Valerie Mack's torso was found in 2000. In October 2025, excavators unearthed a rusted toolbox, its contents a nightmare, a bloodied saw, a coil of rope, and a single earring later matched to Jessica Taylor's missing jewelry. The find was a thunderclap, linking Heuermann to Manorville's dark history, but it raised a chilling question. How many other sites held his secrets? Tierney's team cross-referenced Heuermann's travel records, uncovering trips to upstate New York, Atlantic City, and Las Vegas in the 1990s and 2000s, times that aligned with unsolved murders of sex workers in those areas. A 2024 search of his Chevy Avalanche had revealed a hidden compartment, perfect for smuggling tools or body parts across state lines. The possibility of a wider killing spree was intoxicating, a plot twist that sent pulses racing. Could Heuermann be America's most prolific serial killer, his body count dwarfing even Bundy or Gacy? The drama escalated when a new witness emerged, a bartender from Babylon named Carla Esposito, whose story was pure dynamite. In 2009, she claimed, Heuermann frequented her dive bar, a shadowy spot off Sunrise Highway. He was charming, she said, his deep voice and easy smile disarming until he got drunk and rambled about cleaning up messes, and nobody missing the forgotten. One night, he left behind a napkin with a crude sketch of Ocean Parkway, an X marking a spot near Gilgo Beach. Carla, spooked, kept it, and now handed it over, her hands trembling. I thought he was just weird, she whispered on the stand in a November 2025 hearing. Now I think he was confessing. The sketch matched the dump site of the Gilgo 4, and the courtroom buzzed, jurors scribbling notes. The napkin was a relic of evil, its creases holding a killer's arrogance, and it sent the case into overdrive. But the defense, led by Michael Brown, wasn't out of moves. In a bold gambit, Brown filed a motion to reopen Heuermann's case, citing the Montauk remains as evidence of a copycat. My client's in a cage, yet bodies keep turning up, he argued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Either Rex is a time traveler or someone else is out there. He doubled down on John Bittrolf, the Manorville carpenter convicted of two 1990s murders, whose hunting grounds overlapped Heuermann's. Bittrolf's DNA didn't match Gilgo's victims, but Brown suggested he inspired Heuermann, creating a serial killer nexus on Long Island's South Shore. The theory was a wildfire, fanned by a 2025 documentary, Killer's Coast, which claimed Long Island's isolation and transient population made it a perfect hunting ground. The jury from Heuermann's trial, now disbanded, was unreachable, but public opinion swayed. Could two monsters have stalked the same dunes, their paths entwined like a twisted braid? The tension peaked at a December 2025 evidentiary hearing, where the prosecution unveiled a bombshell, a second planning document found in a locked safe in Heuermann's basement. Labeled HK 1996-02, it predated the first, detailing experiments with disposal methods and a list of targets, women no one will miss. One entry read, Fire Island, low tide, no eyes, chillingly close to where Karen Vergata's skull was found. A forensic linguist testified that the document's phrasing matched Heuermann's work emails, tying it to him beyond doubt. Tierney brandished the pages, his voice ablade. This man planned his reign of terror for decades, and we're only scratching the surface. The courtroom was a pressure cooker. Families weeping, reporters typing furiously. Brown countered, calling the document planted by overzealous cops, but his bravado faltered. The safe's lock code Melissa Barthelomy's birth year was a gut punch, a detail too precise to dismiss. The climax came when a third witness, a former neighbor named Ethan Cole, took the stand. In 2003, he said, he saw Heuermann loading burlap sacks into his Avalanche at 2 a.m., his face slick with sweat. I thought he was hauling landscaping stuff, Cole admitted, his voice cracking. But the smell, it was wrong. Cole's wife later found a woman's scarf in their yard, near Heuermann's fence, and DNA testing in 2025 linked it to Tanya Jackson. The revelation was a lightning strike, tying Heuermann to Peaches and her toddler, though not conclusively. The hearing ended with Judge Timothy Maze denying Brown's motion to reopen, ruling the new evidence strengthened Heuermann's guilt. Cheers erupted, but they were hollow. The Montauk remains, the toolbox, the second document they answered some questions, but birthed others, each a thread in a tapestry that refused to resolve. The resolution was a jagged edge, not a clean cut. Tierney announced a new task force, Gilgo Beyond, to chase leads across New York and beyond. We're looking at every missing woman, every burlap sack, every dune, he vowed, his eyes burning with purpose. Families of the unlinked victims, Vergata, Asian Doe, Jackson, and Dyke stood with Gloria Allred, their resolve unbreakable. We won't stop until every name is known, Allred said, clutching a photo of Tatiana, the toddler whose death haunted all. Heuermann, back in Riverhead Correctional, remained silent, his appeals pending, his secrets locked behind a blank stare. Vitrolf's name lingered, a shadow that refused to fade, as did Shannon Gilbert's 2010 death, still ruled accidental but contested by her family. The case was a labyrinth, its walls shifting with every step. Long Island was enthralled, its quiet shores now, a stage for a saga that captivated the world. Gilgo Beach was no longer just a place, it was a myth, a seductive enigma that promised more horrors, more truths. The Montauk find, the toolbox, the napkin sketch, they were clues to a puzzle without an end, each one a hook that sank deeper into the psyche. Was Heuermann the only monster, or did another stalk the night, their hands still wet with blood? The dunes held their silence, but their whisper was a dare. Dig deeper, risk the darkness, find the next chapter. The story wasn't over, it was a cliffhanger, a pulse-pounding tease that left you craving more. Want to know what lies beneath the sand? Stay tuned to my channel, where the next twist in this chilling tale awaits, ready to pull you back into the shadows.